you really have to focus on what do you want to have happen on that last day? Because if your business depends on you to meet with every single client for their reviews, it'll have very little value in the marketplace.
Hi there. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Leah Alter.
And I'm Joanna Erisman.
And this is WomenShare, a celebration of women in financial services.
And today we're sitting down with Erin Botsford of the Advisor Authority. And we can't wait to hear her advice because she seems like a woman who definitely walks the talk. After spending the majority of her career as a successful advisor, which earned her many accolades, by the way, like being a Barron's top 100 advisor in multiple categories, Erin sold her practice. And she's now dedicated her career to helping other advisors follow in her footsteps through both her Elite Advisor Success System training and her book, Seven Figure Firm, How to Build a Financial Services Business That Grows Itself. So, Erin, thank you for joining us here on WomenShare to share your story and your advice with our listeners.
Well, thanks for having me here. It's nice to meet you guys.
You too. Erin, we're really excited to dig in. We love this topic and, a different, fresh perspective on building a firm. So, oftentimes we, Joanna, have worked with advisors for years and years, and we see that the next step of selling a firm is retirement, right? We see that happen all the time. But you took a different route and launched the Advisor Authority. So we're really excited to get into that. What compelled you to go with this kind of venture of helping other advisors have the same success that you've had?
Well, thanks for asking. So from my personal background, I was raised in poverty. My dad died when I was 11. He left my mom with 6 kids and no money. When I was 16, I was involved in a horrible car accident and someone died as a result. And I was charged with manslaughter. I went through a criminal trial, a civil trial. So, I did not have even a remote good background to enter the financial services business, but I knew a lot of hardship, heartache, tragedy, and all of that stuff. But I walked in I was looking for a job as a secretary in a stock brokerage firm. And the guy said, I'm going to make you a stockbroker. And I was like, okay. I was young in my mid 20s and I didn't know the difference between a stock and a bond. I never heard of a mutual fund, but okay. So as you can imagine, I struggled really badly for the first 10 or 11 years to the point that I told my branch manager I was quitting. It was just too hard. And I just wanted to go get a job and make a paycheck. Right. And so he said, oh, Erin, why don't you go get some business coaching? So I thought, okay, I'm not a quitter by nature. So, let's do this. And so something happened in the 3rd year of my coaching program. We were all asked to stand up and share our results over the past 3 years. And I got paired with this guy who happened to also be a financial advisor. And I was so excited about my progress. I wanted to go first. So I said, hey, I'm Erin Botsford. I'm from Dallas, Texas. 3 years ago, I was doing 300,000 in production. Now I'm on target to do 400 and 450. And I was thinking, that's great. And then it was his turn. He said, yeah, I'm Paul. I'm from Virginia. I was doing 300,000 3 years ago as well. He said, this year I'm on target to do 3 million in production. And he said, I don't meet with any of my existing clients anymore. What I do is I have built a team around me. I go out and I sell the philosophy of my firm. And, and everybody has to agree to work with various members of my team. And of course, my brain starts wandering off. And I kept thinking, did I miss a coaching session? How did he do that? So, as luck would have it, I begged him to buy a few hours of his time, but instead he said, why don't you come spend the day with me and my team? And so that was a game changer for me. And after one day with him and seeing what was possible, it's really all I needed to see. And I came home, I had one part-time assistant that I shared with 4 other guys. And I went to my branch manager, said, hey, I want to use her full time. And she was 20 years old, right out of college. And I said, okay, here's the deal. I'm going to go out and bring a new business and you're going to do everything else. And lucky for me, she said, okay. And so we proceeded to build a very, very large, lucrative practice. We had, 18 employees, 2 offices. My claim to fame is that I always had 7 conference rooms filled with clients of my firm, and I wasn't in any one of them because I wanted to build something like Paul had built. And I really wanted to have something that I could monetize someday. And if your listeners don't learn or remember anything else, but what I'm going to say next is you really have to focus on what do you want to have happen on that last day? Because if your business depends on you to meet with every single client for the reviews, it'll have very little value in the marketplace. The buyer is going to discount the value of your business because they might risk existing clients going away because of that dependency on the advisor. And so knowing that, I built a different kind of practice that really operated with or without my day-to-day involvement. And so anyway, after selling my firm in 2017, I decided, this business is really hard. And could I make it easier for the next advisor coming, out of Series 7 training? That's about as much training as you get other than just product training. And so, in fact, in 2016, I started after I made the Barron's Top 100 in multiple categories, I started being asked to give speeches. And up until that point, I was like, why would I train my competitors? I really didn't know why I would do that. But I thought, Erin, it's time to give back. And so when I went to give my very first speech, what I did was I put up a sign. I said, hey, why don't you guys come spend the day with me and my team? Kind of like I had spent the day with Paul. And I had 18 people sign up. And so I came back to my office and I was like, oh my gosh, we have 18 people coming. I didn't have a program. I had nothing. And then long story short is after doing this for about 2 years and having advisors just come through my office, what I gave them was 2 hours of time with any member of my staff, but they had to submit their questions in advance. And then I realized they all had the same questions. So I asked myself the question, is there some way, and of course I didn't know anything about online training programs. This is in 2016, 17, but was there some way that I could create something once and be able to be a force multiplier? How could I help these advisors? How could I help them make their journey a little bit easier than my journey was? And the good news is, as of this recording, we've trained in the last 4 years about 1,600 advisors. And the really cool part about it is not only are they getting the same results I got, they're doing it much faster. And that makes me just super proud. So I'm having a ball.
Wow. What a story. I know
that's not than you guys expected, but that's the real deal. So
no, that's so great too. But and also being able to, I think a lot of times the ego gets in the way, right? You mentioned, not having to be in the room and, training your competitors and all of that. And I think a lot of times our egos get in the way of us doing that. And the fact that you recognize that, we're able to kind of shut that out and just focus on the bigger picture, just shows that that's where that's where all the success can come in. It's hugely inspiring. Thank you so much for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Well, and it's so interesting having worked with so many firms, so many sellers, right, that were looking to join the firm I was with and kind of integrate that. For the most part, it seemed like this plan to get themselves out of the day-to-day of the business was like maybe 1 to 2 years before they were selling and not embedded in how they operated from day one. So I think that's really interesting that your business was built, from the ground up to not be centered around you. And that seems like a really key insight and something for our listener to reflect on, right? If you're leading a firm, is this something that, can thrive without you and be marketable, to your point?
I'll make a point on this. And the reason I know how valuable this is because, and again, the first 11 years were a train wreck. Okay. I was a complete train wreck. So it really was the last 20 years that it all came together. Thank God, But the same day that I sold my firm, and I had multiple offers competing against each other because they all knew that the business did not depend on me showing up. That was super, advantageous for me. But the same day the buyer bought my firm, they bought another woman's firm. I'm told she had about the same amount of AUM as I did. She had, same size practice. I'm told she actually had employees that work for her, but she clearly had not empowered them to meet alone with her clients. And she had two big things going against her. One, all of her clients were dependent on her. And second, she'd had a massive stroke and she had to sell. She ended up getting, I'm told she got 25 cents on the dollar compared to me because of the way she had structured her business to have clients dependent on her. And I teach a lot of advisors and I interact with them every single day. And I'm like, is that an outcome that you'd be proud of? I mean, you'd step away and go, whoa, look at that. I got 25 cents on the dollar. And I really want that to sink in for people, your audience, because there's no reason for that. Our businesses should be the single greatest asset that we have. We have to protect it with all that we have, all that we are. It's certainly bigger than a 401k we could invest in, etc. And so to disregard what it has to look like on the last day to get an ultimate, outcome is at your own peril, right? And I guess I thought of it a lot earlier, maybe because my dad had died. I always wanted to protect what I was building for my only son and my husband. So that was in the forefront of my mind. Yes, I could have bought a ton of life insurance, but here I was sitting on this great asset. Why would I not protect it?
Yeah. Oh, that's so smart. So smart. Curious to hear, based on your work with advisors, what are some of the biggest organic growth challenges you find that are limiting them from adding new clients? So you obviously highlighted, don't make it all dependent upon you, but what else is hampering their organic growth? Because it's such a pervasive issue in this industry.
How much time do we have? No, I can really nail that down into a couple things. First of all, advisors are limited by their imagination and their skill set and their confidence. So what I try and teach them how to move up market and work with higher and higher net worth clients. Typically, they do not have the skill set or the confidence to do that. Why? I have no idea. I think the training is sort of for the mass affluent market. And so they're limited by some level, right? And so what I teach them is, to me, it's no harder to close a $30 million prospect than a $500,000 prospect. You just have to know what to say when you get in front of them. What I teach is most advisors, they learn there's two sides of a balance sheet. One, there is the investment and retirement side. The other side is the risk side. And I focus on my training on the risk side of the balance sheet. And the reason I do that, after my one day with Paul, I came home, I hired an attorney because I was working with, I would take a $50,000 client. If they could fog a mirror, they were my client. But I didn't want to do that. I knew that was not in my best interest and the business's best interest. So I hired an attorney for a year. She came every Monday to teach me what are the issues of those ideal clients that I want to work with. Because I didn't know. I was a poor girl. I came out of the projects, for goodness sakes. And if anybody had no confidence to meet with somebody, it was me, right? So, but after a year of realizing, I know exactly now what the attributes, what does a high net worth client look for? And one of the things high net worth people have is they've made their money and they don't want to lose it. So you going in and pitching your, manager selection process or your, how you're going to make them money is almost ridiculous. What they want is they want somebody to focus on the blind spots they have, the risk side of the balance sheet. Like, sometimes they're unaware. I said, how much umbrella liability insurance do you have? Well, I got $1 million. Okay, well, you're worth $20 million. So let's play out a scenario. Let's say your teenage son, you told me he's driving a car in your name. He's down at Texas A&M. He gets in a car accident. It happens to be with a plastic surgeon. And now you're being sued for $25 million. How's that $1 million umbrella liability insurance going to protect your assets? And usually, they're stunned. And so that risk side of the balance sheet is where all the magic happens. It's not on the retirement and the investment side. So I have found 22 different places, conversations to go. And these are true vulnerabilities that exist in these prospects' lives. And for whatever reason, ladies, the industry does not teach that. They think it's the long road to get to the assets, right? When in fact, it is the absolute best, fastest way to get to all of the money, because they want all of their money protected, not just a little bit. So not having that skill set, the first of it is it's not having a skill set to address those issues is the number one problem. But once you have that skill set, you create this confidence, you create this aura about you that without any shadow of a doubt, you could walk into any situation and end up with, a prospect meeting, or something, the next step. Because a lot of times I get asked the question, hey, Erin, I'd love to work with, 20, 30, $40 million prospects. I'm like, they said, can you help me find them? I'm like, of course I can. That's where I played, right? But I'll say, well, let's imagine I put you in a room full of $20 million prospects. There's 50 of them. Would you have any idea what to say to get a meeting with them? Would you have any idea once you're in the meeting how to close them? And I teach how to close in the first meeting. None of these 1, 2, 3 discovery meetings. That's ridiculous. It's a complete waste of time. And so most advisors will say, if they're honest, no, I don't know what I would say. But once they learn, it's like magical. They become like this prospect magnet. There's this aura about them, and people are attracted to them because, man, they know what to say at every turn. So when you ask what the issue is, it's skills first, but skills produce confidence. And I think all problems can be solved by those two things.
Wow.
That is, yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot of people's low light bulbs are going off for sure, talking about the two sides of the balance sheet. I think you're right. I think a lot of people focus on how to just make people more money. So I think that's really interesting. So you talk about how growing a firm is more than just acquiring those new clients. It's also in how you put your team together and the structure of that team. Can you talk a little bit about the team structure and the management to help other advisors kind of picture how to put together a team? So like you said, you don't have to be in every single meeting.
Yeah. It's really quite easy. I always recommend start off with a personal assistant who is not licensed. And I specifically don't want that person to be licensed because they're going to have an interesting role, and they can teach them how to qualify people that call in and want a meeting with me or a meeting with one of my team. They can, if somebody says, well, what kind of stuff does Erin recommend? They can say, well, sir, I'm not licensed. I can't discuss that. And so I don't want the prospect to have any preconceived notions about what's going to happen when they walk in. So that person is able to say, I can't discuss that. The second one is I like to get my advisors, I like to get them right out of college with degrees in financial planning. There's a lot of places that you can go to get those because, again, they don't have any preconceived notions. I want to train them the way I want them. And I can also get them relatively inexpensive. So I have a 3-step process for then training them, because the biggest issue that advisors have is, it's so hard to bring on a new client. And the reason it's hard is because we subject ourselves to the prospect of rejection every single day. That's the hardest part of our business, is somebody saying no. So once we get a client, by God, we don't want to lose them. And we don't want some Yahoo in a room with them ruining the relationship, right?
You're right.
So how do you avoid that? I remember one of my early mentors, she said, well, Erin, because I'd gone to Paul's office and he had 7 conference rooms filled with clients of his firm. Of course, I wanted to just replicate that. But man, doing it was so scary. And you always say, well, nobody can sit in there. Nobody can do it as well as me. And so she challenged me. She said, well, what if you had 7 conference rooms filled with clients of your firm and you had licensed people in each room? What if they could only do it 65% as well as you? Would that be good enough? And of course, I have to get a calculator. I'll go, well, would that be good enough? And I determined, yes, it would be good enough. In fact, in practice, what I found out is they were way better than me. Because you're not, again, so what I teach advisors is break down your clients. If your advisors haven't done this, they've got to break it down between A, B, C, and D. And so you're not going to turn your 22-year-old employee in the first year over with your A clients, but there's a 3-step process that I use. So for instance, this advisor, you've got him now, he's working for you. He's maybe even be getting his license. So in the first year, they meet with every single one. They're with you on every phone call, every Zoom call, every meeting. And they do the follow-ups and the downloads and the paperwork, and they follow up with the client. So year 1 is all about having them listen to you. And when the client walks out the door, you say, bye-bye, you turn off the Zoom call. You ask this person, tell me what happened in that meeting. Because you want them to articulate back to you what they heard, specifically how you overcame objections. So in year 2, the magic occurs. So now you've broken it down in year 2, when it comes to your C and D clients. In the first meeting, nothing changes. You sit here, they sit here, you conduct the meeting. The second meeting, all you do is switch seats. And now your employee is actually conducting the meeting. And think about it, it's a C or D client. And they've been in every meeting for the last 18 months, and they've done every follow-up, and they've placed every trade, and the client is very used to seeing them. So switching seats is almost not even noticed. And then on the third meeting that year, the last meeting of that particular year, you are conveniently late. Now, so it's a C or D client. And, if they go away, you're going to be sad, but not too sad. Okay. That's your only worry, that somehow they will not be happy with this. Okay. But that's never going to be the happen. So I created this amazing trick. You use this pen, you use a pen. So I'm conveniently late in the third meeting. I walk in, I go, hey, how you guys doing? I'm sorry I'm late. I do not lie. I don't say I was stuck in traffic. I was just late. Then you look for a signal. And if your advisor, if they take their pen and they put it on the right-hand side of their piece of paper that says everything's going great, there's no need for you to say, they're happy, I've answered all their questions. And so you look for the signal. And if you see that, you go, hey, everything going good? How are the kids? See you next time, and you're out. But if they take their pen and they put it on the top of their piece of paper, what that signal is, I could use a little help. And so you look for the signal, you start to pull up your chair, say, what have you guys been talking about? Well, we were talking about, we recommended this, and they have some questions. Oh, really? What are your questions? And you overcome the objection, and then you never have to meet with them again. So, that little piece of this podcast is probably worth about $8 million. So, you're very welcome.
Wow. It's almost like I don't know, we're coming off the Super Bowl, so I'm thinking football, but I'm like, it's like those little signals and plays among teammates that alert you to, information that they're getting. And I'm sure for those younger advisors, it's hugely helpful and supportive to know that either way, they're going to be fine. They're either they've learned what they need to learn and they're rocking and rolling, or you're there to help them, finish the meeting out.
Yeah. And then, so that was your, year one, they're learning. Year two, you do the transition of C and D clients. Year three, you start with the B clients. And I went ahead and I just converted all. No client ever expected to meet with me. A, B, so my job was really just to go out, just like Paul, sell the philosophy of my firm and bring in ideal clients. And I always said, nobody gets me. Okay. You have to understand, this is the philosophy of my firm. Nobody gets me. You have to be willing to work with various members of my team. And they're like, okay. And you make it sound like this, it's in your best interest. If if you find out, I spend a lot of time in Africa, and if you find out I got killed by an elephant, trampled by an elephant, I don't want you to ever think, oh my gosh, what happens to my money? So I built a generational firm, and we even worked with a lot of the adult children of every client, et cetera. So, the nice thing about it is when you say your rules, you tell them, this is how we work, these are our rules. Guess what? They believe you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And then when you deliver that way, the expectations are set and you just follow through. Yeah. Yeah.
And if it's not for them, that's okay too, because there's plenty of people that it is for. And that's how you find those right clients that are going to also be loyal and stay with you for a really long time.
Well, and by the way, I've just disturbed the hell out of them on 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 things that are missing or awry in their situation that their existing advisor never mentioned. They can't wait to sign that piece of paper and abide by my rules.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You've established that credibility. Absolutely. Yeah. So, Erin, you've enjoyed a long career in the industry. How have things changed for women from your point of view? And where are some areas you hope to see change in the next 5 years?
I think things have changed a lot. The only person that was older in the business than me that I can remember was Alexander Armstrong. She and I used to win awards. I was the young girl and she was the older one in the business. And now I'm the older one, right? So it was very unusual, when I got in the business in 1989 to be a female. And I remember the guys used to actually take bets on how long I would last, and I outlasted a lot of them. I'm hoping, I think things have come along. I wish for women that they didn't think of themselves as women. It's kind of like, I never thought of myself as a male or female advisor. I was a business owner, right? And I was always up against men. And I love the fact that I was different. I wore a red suit and real high heels, and I walked in and I commanded the audience, right? I used my femaleness as a total advantage because because I worked in the high net worth arena, again, imagine me from my background getting to that point. I was always in a competitive situation. So they walk in with their dark suits and their dark ties and their white shirts, and I walk in with a red suit and Manolo Blahnik heels. And guess what? I look different from them. And I'd wait my turn, and they were all going to talk about their manager selection process and all this stuff. And I'd go in, and I could get $100 million guy sweating profusely because he had some areas in his life that one car accident could take away everything that he loved and valued, right? So I loved being the female in that crowd. I worked it, man. I worked it well, never in a bad way, but I'm just saying I liked being different then. And I walked in with a whole different message. And guess what, ladies? I won every single time.
Yes, I love that.
So girls, I'd get that red suit and some of those Manolo Blahnik shoes and go out there and rule the day, right? So
love that. On that same kind of vein, Erin, what is the best career advice that you ever received?
It was from that One Day with Paul. He told me to read the book, The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. And it completely, I was at the, not Reagan National, but the Washington, D.C. airport. I picked it up. I read it cover to cover on the way home to Texas. It forever changed the way I view what I was doing. Because before that, if somebody said, what do you do? I would have said, oh, I'm a financial advisor. And after that, I would always say, I own a financial services company. And the aha moments I had from that book, and I teach this, to all the advisors is, I don't know why this memo never made it to our industry, but in every single other industry, bar none, maybe the exception of real estate agents, but every other industry, the owner of the business hires other people to do the work of the business. And somehow that memo never made it to our industry. And I'm not exactly sure why, but I give examples like, one of my friends, she owns the largest plumbing company in the state of Texas. And she's a Manolo Blahnik chick too. I mean, she's like, and I always think, her name is Carissa. Do you think Carissa has ever gotten on her hands and knees and fixed a toilet? No, she hires plumbers to fix the toilet. I give examples like dentists. When was the last time the dentist came in and cleaned your teeth? They hire other people they call it the hygienist to clean people's teeth. And then when their expertise is needed, then they come in to do the root canal or the whatever. Unfortunately, in our business, a lot of advisors are cleaning teeth.
Yeah.
We're doing the actual work of the business. And so we do not think like business owners at all. We also don't invest in our business. And so advisors have such a hard time like hiring their first employee. Well, where am I going to get the money? So they're used to making X amount of dollars. Oh, they make $300,000 and they want to keep making $300,000 because now their lifestyle depends on it. So I say, okay, I also teach them, I think it's very important to charge financial planning fees separate and apart from AUM fees. And I say, and once I teach them, and believe me, once you've charged a financial planning fee, I always say, will you ever work for free again? And they always say, absolutely not. I had a girl, Bridget, last September, she'd never charged a financial planning fee. She decided not to second guess my process. And she started charging between September and the end of the year. She charged $53,000 in planning fees. She was smart enough to set that money aside to hire her first employee. So she found a new source of revenue to pay for her employee. And so again, the resource of the E-Myth Revisited started the journey. And then I've just expanded it a lot, in coming up with how to justify hiring those people, because a solo practitioner is one illness away from extinction,
Right.
And they'll never get a high valuation on their business. It's just, you don't really have a business. You have a job with a nice boss.
Yeah, well said. Oh, interesting. I love it. It reminds me to reread the E-Myth Revisited. It's been a few years, but it is such a good reminder of just that paradigm shift, right? Of how you approach it. Yes, your business. So outside of the success that you're having at the Advisor Authority and your successful career, what else can we celebrate with you today?
You can celebrate that. Since 2009, I've supported between 500 and 1,000 orphans at an organization called Ebenezer Foundation in Zambia. But because of the success of my training company, last year, my husband and I were able to take on 5,000 more orphans. So now we have, I think it's 45 or 5,500. I lost count, but we support, and they mostly are in the country of Zambia, because that's kind of where our heart is. We've done many, many safaris, and that's how we came across. And I think the orphan, because when my dad died and my mom had to go back to work, and I came home every night to an empty house and put myself to bed, right? And I always wondered, why am I attracted to orphans? But I am. So yeah, the celebration is, I'm very dedicated. I don't need any more money. When I sold my company, I have all the money I need, but I'd like to be serving 50,000 orphans in the next couple of years. So that really is my purpose and the driving force of everything I do. So
that's incredible. Certainly worthy of celebration. A lot of celebration.
Thank you.
Erin, this has just been an incredible conversation. We have absolutely loved having you on the show. I know a lot of people are going to want to find you and connect with you. What is the best place and how to do that?
Sure. It's just go to www.erinbotsford.com, my name.com. I mean, there's so many free resources on our site. We're here to serve advisors, and they can book a free strategy session with one of my team members and really talk about where are you in your business. And we're not here to sell them into our program. If we have a program, we have several programs. If they want help in their business, they want one-on-one time, whatever they want, we can probably serve them. And so if they go to their site and request a strategy session, we're happy to talk them through. Sometimes just in a 30-minute strategy session, we can get them on their way and get them moving in the right direction. So we're happy to help advisors as they come our way.
Wow. Well, and even just in our 30-minute discussion here today, you already dropped so many great nuggets and things. So it's a great appetizer to what.
This is $8 million. Use it.
Oh, well, this has been great, Erin. Thank you again for joining us. That's our show for today. So if ours is a mission that you want to share in, subscribe to WomenShare on your favorite podcast platforms. With that, I'm Joanna Erisman.
And I'm Leah Alter, and we will catch you on the next episode of WomenShare.